Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Integer, and welcome to my top 5 games list of 2015. Now, in general, I think we could all agree that 2015 was a pretty good year for video games, especially when it came to PC gaming. We would have solid PC ports, multi-platform releases that played very well on PC. In this case, I'm talking about games like Mad Max or the Metal Gear Solid newest installment. Obviously, we had some downs, aside from all the ups, and to mention but a few, we can talk about Star Wars Battlefront game, who, although ran very well, wasn't just a good game, gameplay-wise, not a lot of going for itself. Also, the Arkham Knight, the unprecedented game where the publisher Warner Bros. Pulled the game from Steam stores a day after its release because it was so buggy and ran like an utter crap. But these few bumps and dents aside, we had a pretty solid year. So without any further ado, let me kick off my top 5 games of 2015. Number 5, Rainbow Six Siege. I remember learning and discovering that Ubisoft is working on a new Rainbow Six game. I think that was a good 10-12 months ago, and immediately I was worried. As a PC gamer who thoroughly enjoyed the original Rainbow Six games up to Rainbow Six Vegas, never played Vegas 2, I knew that at its core that game was about tactical maneuvering and positioning rather than fast-paced FPS action. In addition to that, when you had Ubisoft label attached to the game, you immediately start worrying about the performance of the game, how finished it's going to be. However, upon release, and even before that, when the open beta was available, I was pleasantly surprised how smooth and trouble-free the game experience was. The weapons handled well in that game, and the tactical aspect is still there, surprisingly. Now, don't get me wrong, the games are much more fast-paced than the classic Rainbow Six installments. However, at this time around, what Ubisoft did is divide the gameplay into 2 parts. You've got the preparation phase early on at the beginning of each round, where the defenders have to set up the defenses around the whatever objective they have to defend. And there are several different ones, but they essentially all serve the same point. Protect the hostage, protect the explosives, or protect the hazardous device of some description. So you set up a defensive perimeter, you reinforce walls to make them impossible or much harder to breach. You set up defensive devices that would jam explosives, whereas as the attackers, you begin the preparation phase controlling your drones and drive around the map trying to locate the objective. Like I've said earlier, the gameplay itself is very solid, the weapons handle well, there is a good variety of them, and although there is not that much customization when it comes to weapons, I think the variety itself is more than sufficient. You've got various different ways how you can approach an objective, breaching through the windows, through the walls, through ceiling and floors, a lot of destructibility all around. You can even shoot through some walls and gain vision or unexpectedly flank your opponent. Big feature in the gameplay is the availability of a lot of different characters who each come with their own perks, abilities and skills. For instance, you can get a guy who can plant explosives that will penetrate even heavily reinforced walls, or you can select an operative who has an LCD screen attached to her arm, using which she can establish the locations of nearby electronic devices such as bomb jammers and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of flexibility and customizability when it comes to what is the most optimized group composition and how to approach the objective. The games last relatively short time, up to 2 or 3 minutes. That's the time limit for each round anyways. However, there's plenty of tension and there's plenty of patience required when it comes to approaching the game. Rushing headstrong usually results in a quick and very painful death. Therefore, positioning, working together as a team and approaching your target strategically, whether you are attacking or defending, is the key. Although there is not a great variety of maps, I think at the time of recording this video there are 5 or 6, give or take a couple. Replayability value is great because every single time you play a new round, the location of the objectives is going to be different. Therefore, it doesn't feel like you're playing exactly same map because your approach has to be different regarding of where the objective is located. All in all, I was pleasantly surprised of how polished this game was by Ubisoft. Now, of course, it doesn't come without its cons. There are some netcoding issues. Sometimes it's hard to find a game, and sometimes there is a very noticeable latency issue within the game, whereas you will not hear the bullets that are shot at you, and therefore it will seem that you died out for no reason, only to see the replay cam and actually see someone shoot you from the back. In addition to that, some texture clipping is still noticeable. However, overall I feel it's a very solid game that, regardless of the few problems that I've encountered, I've been having an absolute loads of fun with. Number 4. Nuclear Throne. We all have those games that kinda creep up on us. You never expect to play them or even enjoy them, but all of a sudden you just can't resist an urge to play them. Nuclear Throne has been this game to me this year. About a week ago I was very bored making breakfast and I tuned into Twitch to have something playing in the background, and a streamer that I watched was playing Nuclear Throne and I immediately was hooked. I was in fact so hooked that at the same time I grabbed my phone and bought Nuclear Throne on Steam. Now, Nuclear Throne is a little independent game developed by a studio called Vlambeer, which not only developed but published it as well. And apparently the game has been on early access on Steam for a good while before it was fully released early this December, and the community has nothing but good things to say about the developer and its communication and collaboration with the player base. Nuclear Throne is a top-down roguelike shooter. You clear the levels of monsters that occupy it and then get teleported to the next level. The progression of a character during each playthrough is dependent on a resource called plutonium. It is these little green sticks that are dropped by monsters that you kill. If you level up during a level, after that level you will get a little screen where you'll get to pick a mutation, which is a sort of an upgrade to your character. It can upgrade the damage you do, it can upgrade the way certain weapons handle, or it can also upgrade and increase the frequency and potency of the loot you find in the game. There are certain staged boss fights on certain levels which are appropriately difficult and require quite a good knowledge and handling of your character in the game. Sometimes it feels like the screen becomes a complete bullet hell, so controlling your character and making sure that you know how to and where to position it is absolutely vital. Now, the good thing is that Nuclear Throne controls amazing. What you input on your keyboard and your mouse is very precisely transcribed into the game, so you don't have any unnecessary input lag. The game controls very smoothly and very crisply. The art style of the game is a retro-inspired one, and heavily so at that too. Suffice to say, a lot of games have attempted at that, but I think Nuclear Throne, although it does not invent anything specifically astonishing, does it pretty well, and it ties very well with the overall theme and the feel of the game. In addition, the weapon variety, which is a meat of the game when it comes to roguelikes, is quite astounding. You get a very wide range of shotguns, assault rifles, and a selection of more unconventional weapons like crossbows, heavy crossbows, and even plasma rifles, laser rifles, disc guns, flaming shotguns, grenade launchers, you name it, that game has it. In fact, one of the favorite ways that I enjoy going around the levels and smashing every single enemy I encounter to pieces is by using melee weapons, which pack an absolutely amazingly enjoyable punch, has a good reach, and has a very nice tied-in system together with the mutations, so you can in the end develop your run and your upgrades to suit, say, melee specific loadout. To sum it up, Nuclear Throne is a game that is very easy to get into, is hard to master, and provides a lot of enjoyment and even funny moments. The enemies are actually quite quirky and never take themselves too seriously. Their design is interesting, and although not super original, like I've said before, everything does fit in and suit the general theme of the game perfectly. I see myself playing Nuclear Throne for a good while, and even though I'm not a big fan of roguelikes, I will most definitely not give up until I reach the nuclear throne at least once. Number 3. Hotline Miami 2, The Wrong Number. I thoroughly enjoyed Hotline Miami, however I wished it was longer and elaborated a bit better on its overall story. Therefore, when Hotline Miami 2 was released, I played it on the release date, and I must say it was an absolute blast of a game. If for whatever reason you're not aware, Hotline Miami is a top-down, eccentric, ecstatic, and a hectic shooter, focused on one-shot, one-kill mechanics. Now, Hotline Miami 2 does absolutely elaborate on many aspects of its predecessor. It is generally longer. It took me about 12-13 hours to finish the game from start to finish. It has way more characters and more masks, and if you are not aware, the masks are essentially something you choose before you start a level. It's essentially a perk that gives you an upgrade, whether to do more damage or be faster or have lethal melee attacks or anything of the sort. Compared to the first installment, Hotline Miami 2 is much longer because it really takes its time telling the story, and it does so by introducing a whole variety of new characters, and you play with them through levels interchangeably, spinning the threads of the story as you go along. This time around, more questions are raised, but at the same time more answers are provided as well, which gives you enough drive to actually carry through the game. I think purely from a mechanical standpoint, Hotline Miami is best at its job. The gun variety is amazing. They all feel very meaty, very responsive, and do exactly what you expect them to do. However, the enemy AI is also not to be underestimated, because they have the access to the same range of weapons and can use them to their utmost deadly effect. Therefore, you will find yourself raging quite a lot and dying quite a lot. However, that's intrinsically a part of the game experience. You have to die and die and die again to learn how to approach a situation, get the best out of the environment, the best out of the weapons that are available to you, and the best out of the character that's available to you. I think Hotline Miami 2 specifically does a great job in teaching you that different characters and different situations require different responses, and if you are stubborn enough and just try to play the whole game in unison style, say wielding a shotgun, you will be hardly punished, but the rewards of finishing a level using the methods you had chosen are so much sweeter. Now, I'm not saying it's not impossible, and it might actually be a bit of a challenge to do so, but that's not really what the game was designed for. And it's something that I personally praise it for. I think when it comes to top-down, fast-paced shooters, like I've said before, Hotline Miami 2 is the best in business, and you should most definitely check it out if you haven't already. I have found Hotline Miami 2 to be one of the very few games that perfectly manages to balance the ease of using optimized methodology and weaponry together with a higher risk, higher reward approach of one's individual selected tactics. With the addition of the level editor, which although was promised to be released sometime in the summer, only came to beta stage early this winter, is a very nice addition to the game, where you can craft your own levels, environments, place enemies, and see essentially what sort of a challenge you can create for yourself or your friends. Overall, Hotline Miami 2 provided exactly what you would expect it from it. Denaton Games did a great job, in my opinion, elaborating on the story, keeping the core meaty solid gameplay and just expanding it in both the scale, the length, and the craziness of Hotline Miami 1. Number 2. Dirt Rally. If you'd been following my Twitch and YouTube channels at least for a year or so, you will know that racing games are definitely not my cup of tea. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing against them, I just don't find them to be too compelling. Until that is June this summer, when I decided, for whatever reason, to give a go at Dirt Rally. And oh boy, was I taken for a ride. Dirt Rally is a racing game simulating World Rally Championship type of racing, which, to put it simply, translates into powerful cars drifting around muddy tracks across the world. My knowledge and expertise in the matter is by no means sufficient to be able to say whether this is actually a decent simulator or not. But I tell you what, after playing the game for a good 25-30 hours with a wheel with a gear shifter and pedals, I must say it feels pretty damn realistic. It is hard. First and foremost, the game is hard. If you drive the car and if you select to have minimum assistance from the game, you will have a hard time keeping your car on the track. But that is what you would expect from a racing game. That's what I expect from a racing game. If you're racing down a wet and muddy forest roads down in Wales or a snowy track in Sweden, Scandinavia, you do not expect your car to have controls as if you were playing the 74th installment of Need for Speed. And trust me, it doesn't. You make a necessary press of a throttle pedal here or a necessary twist of the wheel left or right there, and your car is left skidding across the road, into the side, crashing into a tree, bursting a tire, and essentially rendering your whole run redundant. Now, the game itself offers a good range of stages to race through. At the time being, there are 6 or 7 if I'm not mistaken, and each of the stages have different selection of races available, with about similar numbers, 6 or 7 races per stage. The variety of cars was very decent at launch. It had a full roster of vehicles available, ranging from all the way down to 1960s, 1970s, then classic B group rally cars, A group cars, as well as the legendary cars from the late 90s, early 2000s, even the modern beasts that are rally cross cars. Developer Codemasters have not shied away from the community. They've been listening to what the players had to say about the game. They've been improving the performance, implementing new stages and new cars to the game. The overall support, I feel, has been amazing, and I had an absolutely amazing time playing this game, and therefore I put this game on a second spot on my top 5 list, not so because it was necessarily better than other games I have played this year. The sheer fact that I did not expect to spend as much time on Dirt Rally as I have, and will most likely will, because I thoroughly enjoy streaming this game and people enjoy watching me stream this game as well. I must give it all the due credit, and kudos to Codemasters. To a person who was never big into rally games and can't really have a very valid objective opinion when it comes to judging how good the game is at what it does, Dirt Rally sure as hell feels realistic, hard and harsh and punishing, but therefore is ever so much more enjoyable to play. Number 1. Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt. I may be jumping above my waistline here, but when it comes to deciding what game I enjoyed the most this year, in general, Nebster must say, well, this is a no-brainer. I think first time in a long while I can look back at the year, look back at the 12 months of gaming, and what I've played, what I've seen, what I've heard, what I've experienced, and I can with an absolute ease state that it's this easy to say what's the best game I've played this year, and that is Witcher 3. Before I start talking about the game itself, I would like to specifically take a step back and express my gratitude and admiration towards CD Projekt Red, the developer behind the game, and that is because of the awesome job they've done with this game, or with the previous 2 Witcher games that I've been absolutely enthralled with. Kudos to CD Projekt Red, and I think they were very rightfully crowned the Developer of the Year in Geoff Keighley's Game Awards 2015. Now, Witcher 3. Where does one start a discussion about Witcher 3? Everything about that game is absolutely mind-blowing. From the simple, immediate, astonishing visuals. That game is by far the best looking game I've played. The expansiveness of the world is quite surreal. Minor spoilers will follow. White Orchard was the first starting zone where you begin your travels with Geralt, and I thought that was a pretty expansive and big zone to travel and quest in. And then came Velen, and I opened my map and I zoomed out and I kept on zooming out and out and out, and I literally just sat down and my jaw dropped. How extensively, expansively, incredibly large the area was. However, what is an expansive and beautiful world without any people to populate it with that go about their usual daily routines every day, come rain or shine? That's another box that Witcher 3 ticks. Wherever you go, whatever village you stumble upon, you'll have people running about, going about their business, doing their daily chores. There will be some people asking for some help, but it's not even that. Each notice board has 6 notes on it, and there will be, more likely than not, will be 2 or 3 quests on there. But apart from that, you will have a note about a local butcher complaining how all of his pigs and cows have been stolen by this mysterious creature, and he advises his fellow village folk not to travel through the woods at night, because that same creature may snatch them as well. So there's a lot of going on in the background, even without Geralt actually taking part in it. Now, I think when it comes to pure gameplay, the combat system has received a lot of attention, and in my opinion has been smoothed out to a much better degree. The first Witcher had some clanky situations that you could get yourself into. Witcher 2 did a much better job, but at times it still would feel, I'd say the best word to describe it would be unresponsive. Playing Witcher 3, I am yet to experience such a feeling while in combat, and I've played around 45-50 hours of the game. Now, the story itself is where the game shines. Like I've said, you've got this massive world that is inhabited by a lot of different people, good and bad, and because you are living the story through Geralt's eyes, you're a Witcher and you are someone whose character is already formed. Now, I think this is a very, very, very important part in realizing and evaluating Witcher 3 as an RPG. You can roleplay, and you have some sort of freedom to what choice you want to make when it comes to certain quests. However, the game does a very good job reminding you time and time again that you're playing not from the perspective of a character you created yourself, but the one of Geralt, a well-established and defined character. Overall, Witcher 3 is one of the very few games that I am left in absolute awe every time I turn it on. I load the game and I sit on the roach and I just want to travel around enjoying the sunsets and the sunrises and the wind and the rain and everything else in between before embarking on some epic monster slaying quest. That's the game that has a very interesting storyline, but at the same time has so much going on in the background that is happening, or at least feels like it's happening there without you as well, that you actually do feel like you are traveling and questing through a living, breathing world. So let me express my thankfulness and appreciation to everyone who's watched this video. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on the 5 games I liked and enjoyed the most in 2015. Now, I am doing a big end of the year, beginning of a new year stream today and quite possibly right now, so go over to my Twitch channel and jump in on all the fun. Now, I've got some big plans set up for 2016, both for my YouTube and Twitch channels, and I will be updating you with the news and my plans in a very short while. But in the meanwhile, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to my YouTube, and follow my Twitch channels. Leave a comment down below to share your thoughts and opinions, and I will see you in the next year, 2016.